Hey guys, this is Rich, the Keto Mechanic. What I got is I have a 2012 Ford Explorer with a 3.5 liter engine. This car was wrecked in the front end, but the dealer put it back together. The used car dealer couldn't figure out why the compressor wouldn't turn on, etc., etc. A lot of times the display head or the control panel inside the vehicle for the AC, it's got its own little module built in behind it. Those will go bad. And they're on like nationwide back order if you get them from like a company called AER. I was having a heck of a time with this. I couldn't figure out what was going on. Looking at the wiring schematic, trying to follow pinpoint tests, it was leading me nowhere. So I just thought, go back to the basics. So here's how I ended up figuring out what was going on. You got a 5-volt reference signal that comes out to the AC compressor. It has to see those 5 volts. Basically, the computer sits underneath the panel back here. You pull this whole cowl off. There are these little clips all the way around. And then once you pull this off, there's a secondary panel underneath. Make sure you take the windshield wipers off first. Now, PCM sits over here in this back corner. The connector all the way to the left. Pin 52 is the one. If you actually look on the face of it, you'll see pin 52. Basically, there's two wires, and there's a big gaping hole in the bottom. If you're looking at it, and then if you go up one row and the second one in, that's pin 52. If you actually tap into that wire and see how much voltage is coming out of the PCM, it's supposed to be 5 volts. And I was getting 5 volts with it plugged in, but I wasn't getting 5 volts over here to this AC pressure sensor, the green wire right here. And I wasn't getting 5 volts down here to this gray connector, this that goes around the alternator wire. And that's your reference voltage for the current that's being pulled through the alternator. So I had a code in the computer for that. I had a code in the computer for low pressure on my low pressure AC transducer. So the pinpoint tests weren't really helping me. So I went to the book, I looked up splice packs, and I found splice pack 121. And I know that my wire from there, I was getting 5 voltage out of it, but I was getting nothing down here to the AC pressure transducer, and I wasn't getting anything to the actual current sensor down here. So following the book back, it led me over here to the fuse box. Pop the cover off the fuse box. There's the little tabs over here on the side all the way around. Pull your battery out of the way. Pull your cables and stuff off your battery. Then back in here, there's a blue and red wire down here in the bottom. That hooks over here on the side. Pull that wire, lay it out of the way. Pull this up, and you can lay this off to the side right here. Underneath this, there is a green and yellow wire that runs through the cowl panel up here. It comes through this harness, it runs through back here, and it goes underneath all this. Now you'll think for a second that it goes into the fuse box. It does not. All it does is run underneath it, continue down, goes into this connector down here, and continues around to the front. Now you'll find those two. It's one wire coming from the PCM and 2 wires coming out. That's your 5-volt reference wire. Inside that splice pack is cracked. That's what's causing that current sensor code, I forget what it is, and the AC pressure transducer code. And the computer was reading like 12.18 psi, but in all reality it wasn't 12.81 psi. It was actually ambient temperature. So at stagnant, if the engine's hot, it's going to read a little bit more pressure. But currently, say if it's 60 degrees outside, you should get 60 psi on the low side pressure transducer. It was reading 12.18. And I knew something was wrong right there because that's not what it's supposed to read. And I'm having problems with that current sensor, and they both run off the same VREF coming from the PCM. So I followed that splice pack back, cut the splice pack over, or inlaid a new section of wire, heat shrinked it, wrapped it all back together, heat shrinked it, put all back in there. Got a max AC. Sure enough, it jumped right up to about 70-80 psi after a few minutes of running, up to 140 to 150 psi running pressures. I knew I was good at that point. Fixed the vehicle, got it all put back together and stuff. The customer's happy now. Simple stuff like that, guys, can be the hardest problem to fix because we walk away from the basic stuff. Keep it simple, stupid. KISS. And anyway, it's pin 52 from the PCM to pin 3, the yellow-green wire at the pressure transducer. Another problem that you may have with these Explorers is the evaporative outlet temperature sensor goes bad, and some of them are molded into the case. So that can cause your AC to stop operating correctly, and it'll read some erratic temperature, and you'll have to pull the whole dash out, pull the evaporator. You'll have to get a new evaporator section and stuff and replace all that. So I've had one with the PCM come in and it was bad. So that's what was causing it. But in this particular situation, if you got 5 volts coming out of pin 52 from the computer with the connector plugged in, if you're back probing it and you have nothing coming out here, suspect splice pack 121 underneath the fuse box over there. Thank you guys. God bless. Take care.